Let's talk about one of the most famous places on the entire planet, New York City. But this isn't just a tour of skyscrapers and landmarks. Nope. This is the incredible story of how a city has been completely reinvented over and over again for 400 years.
So, right now, New York is home to more than 8.3 million people. It's this sprawling, global megacity, a giant in finance, in culture, you name it. And it feels so permanent, right? Like it's always been this way. But honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Okay, so this is what's so wild. Almost everything we think of as New York, the skyline, the subway, all of it is actually less than 100 years old. So how on earth did that happen? How did a small trading post on a patch of forest become, well, this?
And that's the whole story right there. New York's history isn't just about getting bigger. It's about constant, sometimes brutal reinvention. It is a city that is literally built on change. So let's rewind the clock way, way back. Before any European ships showed up, this place was a world of dense forests and rivers. It was home to Lenape tribes, who had lived there for something like 8,000 years. The first 150 years of European contact? Yeah, they moved incredibly fast. It all kicked off in 1524 when an Italian explorer claimed the land for France, but nothing much happened. The real turning point was 1609, when Henry Hudson sailed in for the Dutch. They were the ones who actually stayed and set up a small but vital trading post, one that would lay the groundwork for everything to come. And by 1625, the Dutch had built Fort Amsterdam. Why? To protect their booming fur trade. This wasn't just some side hustle. It was the absolute economic engine of the colony. This focus on commerce, on making a profit from day one, really baked a certain DNA into the place. The town that grew around it, New Amsterdam, was all about business. A year later, its director general, Peter Minute, famously bought Manhattan from a local Lenape group for goods worth about 60 guilders. But the Dutch era didn't last forever. In 1664, an English fleet just sailed into the harbor and took the colony without a single shot being fired. And just like that, it was renamed New York. But what's really interesting is that even though the name and the flag changed, a lot of the Dutch foundation stuck around. Things like the street grid downtown, a certain tolerance that comes from being a commercial hub, and, crucially, its economic system, a system that relied heavily on slavery. And we really can't skip past this. Slavery wasn't just a footnote in early New York's economy. It was absolutely fundamental to it. The port was a major hub for the slave trade. By the 1740s, 1 out of every 5 people living in the city was an enslaved African. Their forced labor built the city's early infrastructure and generated massive wealth, fueling the prosperity that helped it grow. All right, let's jump forward a bit to the American Revolution. New York played a huge role here, first as a hotbed of colonial resistance, and then later as the actual stage where the new nation was born. Right after the war, New York actually became the first capital of the United States. Federal Hall on Wall Street, that's where George Washington was inaugurated. But the political power was just the start. You had visionaries like Alexander Hamilton creating the Bank of New York. Then the New York Stock Exchange popped up, cementing the city's financial destiny. But the real game changer? The Erie Canal in 1825. This was an incredible engineering marvel that connected the Great Lakes all the way to the Atlantic, making New York the undisputed economic gateway to the entire continent. Now, with all that economic power came people. Lots and lots of people. The 19th century completely transformed New York with wave after wave of immigration, turning the city into this vibrant, chaotic, and truly global melting pot. Just look at these numbers. They're staggering. The city's population absolutely exploded, going from just 60,000 in 1800 to over 500,000 by the middle of the century. People fleeing poverty and persecution from all over Europe and Asia just poured into neighborhoods like the Lower East Side, all of them looking for a fresh start. But this growth had a really dark underbelly. For many people, life was just brutal. You had overcrowded, filthy tenements that were breeding grounds for diseases like cholera. The Great Fire of 1835 wiped out a huge part of the city. Poverty led to infamous street gangs. And all these tensions just boiled over in 1863 with the draft riots, a horrific few days of violence that is still one of the worst cases of civil unrest in American history. So as the city rolls into the 20th century, it enters this era of just incredible ambition. I mean, this is the period that built the New York we all recognize today, a time of insane architectural marvels, cultural explosions, and eventually a devastating crash. And you can just feel that ambition right here. Think about it. The Brooklyn Bridge physically stitched the growing city together. The Statue of Liberty became this global symbol of hope for millions arriving by boat. The subway system, opened in 1904, became the lifeblood that let the city expand. And then, of course, came the skyscrapers. It was literally a race to the clouds that climaxed with the Empire State Building, just a pure monument to the city's soaring confidence. So what do you think this number represents? Well, during the Prohibition era of the Roaring Twenties, this was the estimated number of illegal speakeasies and jazz clubs that were flourishing all over the city. It was a time of pure decadence and defiance, a party that never seemed to stop.
But as our source material puts it so perfectly, that party came to a sudden, screeching halt with the Wall Street crash of 1929. The decade of excess was officially over.
The Great Depression was an absolute catastrophe for New York. Banks failed, businesses shut their doors, and millions of people were left jobless and desperate. It got so bad that shantytowns, bitterly nicknamed Hoovervilles, actually sprang up right in the middle of Central Park. The city's confidence was just completely shattered.
But, true to its nature, New York was about to reinvent itself all over again. The years after World War II saw the city climb out of that hardship to claim a new and powerful role on the world stage. While so many of the world's great cities were in ruins after the war, New York emerged stronger than ever. It became the home of the United Nations, it stole Paris's crown as the center of the art world, and it became a true rival to London's financial markets. It was another complete transformation. Now, this isn't to say it was all easy. The 1970s were a notoriously tough decade, full of crime and urban decay. But even then, the city kept building, kept pushing forward, with massive projects like the World Trade Center symbolizing its absolute refusal to stand still. And that really is the heart of the whole story. When you look at New York's history, you see this constant cycle of crisis and renewal. It has faced down everything: fires, plagues, riots, financial collapse, unimaginable tragedy. But the one thing that's always true is that it has always managed to pull itself back up. From a little Dutch fur trading post to a global megacity, the only constant in New York's history has been change. It's a city that is never finished, and that leaves us with the ultimate question. After 400 years of reinventing itself, what on earth comes next?